What's up, Packer fans? I'm Untitled Chapter, host of Monologue Packers podcast. Thank you for being here. Thank you for checking out this video. Take the weekend off because the Packers do not play until Monday night against the Detroit Lions. Up here in Wisconsin, we're supposed to be getting some snow of all things, so hopefully you can get outside, check out a pumpkin patch or two. It could be Oktoberfest in your neck of the woods, but on this show, on this podcast, it's Friday. I'm going to break down this upcoming battle, the divisional battle that is between the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. Here's my final thoughts. Here's my preview, things to watch out for, keys to victory. It is time to pour ourselves another Packers podcast. So I have to start out by saying that it has been a tumultuous week, an exciting week for me this past week. As you are probably aware, I did not go live on Tuesday night. If you follow me on Twitter or on my Facebook page, you will have known that I had my third child, a beautiful little girl by the name of Lennon Beth Marie Chapek. So that was what I have been up to this week. I'm squeezing in a Packers final thoughts video just to stay consistent, just to keep up with you guys and to keep up with the Packers. And I'm showing some pictures, I believe, probably here on the screen. Absolutely love her to death. I can't wait until she moves out of my house in 18 years. But until then, I will continue to break down Packers, and I will continue to go live on Tuesday nights moving forward. So I apologize, but I regret. Let's just get started. Now, because I didn't go live on Tuesday, I do want to do a real quick recap of the Dallas Cowboy game on Sunday, because that was an incredible big victory, big time victory for the Green Bay Packers. And Aaron Jones had himself a career day. So 107 yards rushing, another 70 yards receiving. He has 4 touchdowns on Sunday against Dallas. He has 8 touchdowns through 5 weeks, and that leads the entire NFL for total touchdowns. I believe I saw a statistic that he has more touchdowns than the Jets and the Dolphins combined. So Aaron Jones is absolutely killing it right now. The defense themselves had a great day too. They had 3 total takeaways, all interceptions. Alexander had one, Sullivan had one, and then Kevin King got away with murder on pass interference. Yes, I'm going to say that it was blatant pass interference that was not called, but he too came away with an interception. 3 total takeaways on Sunday, and we were able to jump out to that early 31-3 lead and completely took away that Dallas running game. So Elliott finished with 62 yards on 12 carries. I don't think the run defense is necessarily fixed, but we definitely took a step, and we showed that if you can get out to those early leads, you can really change up the game plan of the opposition and kind of take away the run game on that side of things. But Burks will get more playing time. He did play against Dallas on Sunday. He'll be more active on Monday night against Detroit. I also look for Montravius Adams to also get some more playing time and be more of a bigger role on Monday night. But these are 2 guys that, in my opinion, will kind of shape that run defense and how they can stop the run as a whole. LaFleur has a bit of an identity crisis. Now, this is something I want to talk about, I think, especially when it comes to playing with a lead. So read an incredible article. I'll try to find it again and post it in the comments or post it in the description. But they talked about how LaFleur has quite simply been able to scheme his way really early on in these games to getting the offense out to a fast start by throwing the opposing defenses off guard by a little bit, but once they get that lead, they struggle essentially to kind of keep that ball moving, keep the points going, and it almost killed us, quite frankly, against Dallas when we eventually did win 34-24. But yeah, could have definitely gone bad, and I think this is something that we got to keep an eye out for. The offense has increasingly got better. Week 1, they had 10 points. Week 2, 21. Week 3 and 4, they scored 27 points, and then last week they had 34 points. They will have to find and figure out their mindset and game plan about how they want to play with the lead. Now, there's a lot of back and forth with this discussion. Obviously, you want to run out the play clock. You want to run down the game clock and take up as much time as possible and just essentially, come away with a victory. But I think they need to find that killer instinct. I think they have to, kind of get that mentality of don't let off the gas. And definitely, they want to play all 4 quarters. I think that's something that we haven't seen, and that's something that we will probably begin to see, hopefully throughout this mid-stretch of the season, or as we approach the second quarter of this season, especially when we head into a place like Arrowhead and face off against the Chiefs. That's going to be when we're going to have to put together a full 4 quarters of action. Otherwise, this could be a problem, or a little bit of, like I stated, an identity crisis for Matt LaFleur and that offense. So if you're curious exactly what I mean, or where I'm coming from, here's an example. So 28-3, right? Midway through the third quarter of Super Bowl 51, Atlanta led 28-3 over the New England Patriots. They played it safe. They played not to lose rather than playing to win. They focused more on running out the clock. And obviously, New England came back. They won that Super Bowl. It was one of the greatest comebacks in Super Bowl history. And yes, this is an extreme example of how a team can get themselves almost too far off their game plan, forget who they are, and play not to lose versus playing to win. And this is, I don't want this, quite frankly, to come up and haunt us when we make it into the playoffs, when we make it hopefully deep into the playoffs. I just don't want this to be a reoccurring thing or something that we should worry about. So I'm very happy, obviously, that the Packers are getting out to these early leads. They just got to figure out how to just continue to kind of hunker down, keep the other teams out of the game 100%. Walk out with victories nonetheless. I mean, a win is a win in the NFL, but hey, I digress. Let's move on. On Thursday, Green Bay reported 20 players on their injury report. So Burks, Zadarius Smith, and Kyler Fackrell, and Jamal Williams were all listed as full participants. So that is great news as far as the health of that team. And all will play very key roles on Monday night against the Detroit Lions. Now, Savage, who left Sunday's game with a high ankle sprain, he did not participate. He has not participated yet this week. He has appeared in a walking boot throughout the week. Seems unlikely to play on Monday night, but all signs point to this not being a long-term injury, although they did say the same thing about Davante Adams, and that one too, which I'll get to, is obviously going to kind of keep him out a little bit longer than anticipated. Corey Linsley was just cleared from concussion protocol. He did practice on Friday. Rodgers too found himself on the injury report with a knee injury of some sort. I think this is nothing that we need to talk about. I think it will get blown out of proportion if we do. The news did not become public until after his locker room interview, and thank God, because like I said, they do nothing but ask him questions, and he'd be like, no, I'm working through it. It'll be fine. I'll play through it. I don't think there's anything to be concerned about with Aaron Rodgers' knee injury. Regardless, he will be out on the field, hopefully throughout the rest of the season, playing and doing Aaron Rodgers things. So the biggest concern, Davante Adams. So for the second straight week, it looks as though Adams will not be active in the Packers roster. He was quoted as saying, "It doesn't feel how I want it to feel at the moment," and referred to turf toe as a major injury, and wants to make sure it's not something that gets re-aggravated later in the season. So this is something that I think is turning out to be a little bit more serious than we would have liked to hear from a turf toe injury. And I don't even know what a turf toe injury is. I mean, you just go out there. Yes, it's going to hurt, but you can't play football, whatever. So Green Bay might have to learn how to win consistently without Adams, especially if this turf toe thing drags on a little bit further than any of us anticipated. And LaFleur will definitely add to his resume if he continues to put game plans together like he did on Sunday. So honestly, guys, the Packers absolutely took Dallas by surprise and had so much success against Dallas pretty much throughout the entire game. Yes, it started to slip away a little bit at the end, became a little bit more tense than we wanted to, but it had to do mainly with the scheme and the play calling by Matt LaFleur. And I think what he did out there was absolutely masterful. No one, and I mean no one, expected Jones to have, the game that he had. No one expected Rodgers to go out there, only throw for 240 some yards and throw 0 touchdowns, and the Packers were still able to put up 34 points on the board. They altered their offense and even their scheme. They made the subtle change of going from an outside zone to an inside zone, and they showed Dallas something that they didn't have time to counter with until there was too much. They got too far of a lead, and there was not enough time on the board for Dallas to really mount a full comeback on them. So Packers players will step up. It'd be foolish of me to predict who and when. Definitely wouldn't have predicted Aaron Jones to have the game that he had this week or last week. I could look at like a Jimmy Graham or one of our receivers that just is kind of waiting to jump out and have one of those Showtime performances, but it's not really worth it at this point. I think it'll be LaFleur who will captain the ship through these murky waters, through these stormy waters, and I'm excited to see how this plays out. I expect it to play out well. I think, Matt LaFleur is completely honed in and focused. He has the full support of everybody in that Green Bay locker room. And Rodgers had this to say about LaFleur this week. He goes on to say, he's dialed in. He is a grinder. He works his tail off every single day. You see it in the preparation and the way he is in front of the room. He has supreme command of the install every week. So absolutely phenomenal. I love what we have at this head coach. I was a big fan of this signing very early on, or right when it happened, or even before it happened. I was kind of picketing or wanting LaFleur to be our head coach. 4-1. He has just as many wins or equal amount of wins as the rest of the rookie head coaches in the league. I believe it's 4-19-1 is the rest of the records, and LaFleur is obviously 4-1. So he's absolutely killing it. I'm completely behind him. I think the Packers locker room is completely behind him. Cheers to you, Matt LaFleur. Let's talk about this Detroit Lions matchup. This will be the 180th meeting between Green Bay and Detroit. Green Bay leads the series 100 games to 72 and 7 ties. And since 2000, Green Bay has a 71% winning percentage over Detroit, and they've gone 27-11 over that time span. So they have had a remarkable last 3 decades against the Detroit Lions. Furthermore, the Packers are 25-3 against the Lions at home since 1992 and 16-3 against the Lions at home since the year 2000. However, Detroit has won the last 4 meetings. I did not realize that. I think I got caught up in Rodgers getting hurt 2 years ago and then just the shit show of the Mike McCarthy offense last year. But Detroit has won the last 4 meetings against Green Bay since Matt Patricia took the head coaching position, sweeping us both in 2017 and 2018. And if that doesn't worry you, last year, Detroit outscored Green Bay 62 points to 23 points, and their 23 points came in that Week 5 loss, and then they couldn't even put up a single point in the final game of the year. Yes, Rodgers went out with a concussion. Yes, they were playing with Joe Philbin, and for a meaningless, game and a season and all that goes into it. But ouch. So Detroit enters Week 6 coming out of their bye week and in second place in the NFC North. That's a little bit of a surprise unless you look at the rankings and kind of how everything is shook out. Detroit is in second place with a potential opportunity to go into first place with a win in Lambeau on Monday night. So after blowing a big lead against Arizona in Week 1, which did end up resulting in a tie, Detroit had 2 solid victories against the Chargers and the Eagles, and then they played Kansas City in Week 4. Extremely tough. They led the game 30-27 with 2:26 left in the game. But then, of course, Patrick Mahomes does his 2-minute drill, marches it down the field. They go up 34-30, and they end up winning the game. So I think, quite frankly, Detroit could easily be 4-0 just as much as they could be 0-4. All these battles that they've had, all these games that they've played so far this season, really could have gone either way. But one thing that stands out to me is that this is a Lions team that's been able to fight through a lot of adversity, has been fight through some of these battles and come away with some victories. And that hasn't always been the case with the Detroit Lions of the old. They would always seem to find a way to blow it. And just the fact that they've been able to kind of scrounge up these 2 victories that they have, I guess they hung on to a tie, but they blew that lead and it resulted in a tie. And then just the way that they play Kansas City, and that's a real mystery too, is whether or not Kansas City is the powerhouse that we think they are. I think it all boils down to Patrick Mahomes and whether he can stay healthy and stay mobile. But we don't want to get too off topic. We'll talk about Kansas City in a couple weeks. The Detroit Lions have a very good football team, and like I stated, they will have a chance to take the lead in the NFC North with a victory. Detroit has always played the Packers tough. It's a divisional matchup, and both teams are well aware of the importance that boils down to winning these games. Matthew Stafford has a respectable 102.6 passer rating on the season. He's thrown for 1,100 yards, 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions through 4 games. Their running back looks like they are favoring Kerryon Johnson. He seems to be the preferred option at running back. He has 51 less yards rushing than Aaron Jones, that man I was talking about earlier that leads the league in touchdowns. 51 less yards rushing, and he's played 1 less game. So you figure if Detroit didn't have a bye week, I'm sure Kerryon would have easily picked up 51 yards and either been tied or higher than Aaron Jones and where he stacks. Against Kansas City in Week 4, Kerryon rushed for 125 yards. He'd averaged 4.4 yards per carry. This is something that I think the Packers will definitely get a chance to improve and show that their defense run stopping is improving. I don't really think that the Detroit Lions run game is going to be the problem or the main focus for the Packers defense, though. They have weapons in the passing game. So wide receiver Galladay and Jones Jr. both have over 240 receiving yards, and Galladay has 4 touchdowns himself. And then you have rookie tight end TJ Hockenson. He has a respectable 160 266 yards on the season and 2 touchdowns as well. In regards to their defense, talking about Detroit's defense, they've given up 23.8 points a game, which is kind of something that I like to see. However, they've given up the 8th fewest yards in the NFL so far this season. Darius Slay, arguably one of the best cornerbacks in the league, should be back after missing the Chiefs game 2 weeks ago. I think he will definitely be responsible for shutting down either Geronimo or MVS at some point. And then you look at both defensive tackles, Mike Daniels, you might be familiar with that name, and Ashawn Robinson. They're both dealing with injuries that could keep them sidelined. However, if they do keep them sidelined, if their injuries prevent them from going out there and playing, this should create an opportunity for the Packers to continue to rush the ball. And that leads me to the keys to victory. So key to victory number 1 is give the ball to the hot hand. So Sunday against Dallas could have been a flash in the pan for Aaron Jones. And with Jamal Williams coming back, his production could go down. But he's coming off of a career game, and the Packers would be foolish and would be remiss to not keep finding ways to get the ball to Aaron Jones, feed him the rock, focus on that run game. That will open up the play action, especially when you have kind of that unknown wide receiving group. Quite frankly, this could create a lot of opportunity in play action, especially if they can continue to get the ball to the hot hand. Like I stated, outside of his 107 yards rushing, he had another 75 receiving yards, and he was Aaron Rodgers' #1 target last Sunday in the passing game. And the Lions defense should have Jones as an area of focus heading into Monday night. However, with Adams expected to be out again, Darius Slay will most likely be responsible for shutting down one of those 2 wide receivers, and Jones will once again have his number called upon and will need to have a repeat performance. So I expect for a key to victory, continue to find ways to get Aaron Jones the football until he, shows signs of cooling down. I think that needs to be the mentality moving forward. Jamal Williams, like I said, will be back. However, I don't expect him to have a full, playbook or full play call. I don't expect him to get a whole lot of snaps, I think is what I'm trying to say. Coming off of that concussion injury, they probably want to ease him into it a little bit slowly. But yeah, get the ball to Aaron Jones. That will allow you to control the time of possession. That will allow you to hopefully pick up some of those hard-earned first downs, if not put you in a third and manageable, which is something the Packers have been working on. And definitely it will keep the defense off the field so they can stay healthy to get on the field and kind of mess up the entire Detroit Lions offense. So key to victory number 2 is, speaking of offense, is to shut down a Detroit Lions player. And the one that I picked out is TJ Hockenson. So I think TJ will be the X factor for the Lions offense on Monday night. I see Alexander and King. They'll be fine on the edges with Galladay and Jones Jr. or even Danny Amendola. I think that they'll figure out, being fine, kind of doing man-to-man on those guys and shutting those guys down. We have great corners, quite frankly. However, it's the number 8th overall pick, TJ Hockenson, that should be a focus for Pettin and that Packers D. Now, the reason why I bring this up is that the Packers have struggled to stop passes in the middle of the field. And the Detroit Lions have a 6'5", 247-pound target that is exactly what Stafford has in his tool belt and his arsenal in that passing game. It could be crucial, or I should say it will be crucial, for Green Bay to knock Hockenson off of his routes early. And if Savage, who isn't probably going to be in the game, if he's not 100% healthy or ready to go, the Packers will probably have to rely on guys like Chandon Sullivan or Josh Jackson to kind of, stick with him. They might, implement Martinez to an extent to stick with TJ Hockenson, but I don't want to see Martinez focused on the tight end for the entire game. I'd like to see him part of that pass rush and getting to Matthew Stafford, because Stafford has thrown for a combined 449 yards in his last 2 meetings against the Green Bay Packers, which isn't anything extraordinary. But if we get pressure on him, if we eliminate the short, quick throws over the middle of the field, because if we come at him fast, Stafford's going to be looking to dish that off to his safety blanket. I think TJ will probably be his safety blanket, and that should create, if we can get pressure, that should create some sacks, that should create some turnovers, get the Packers defense rolling, keep the Lambeau Field crowd just jacked up and excited, and hopefully be what I believe is a key to victory. So like I said, shut down TJ Hockenson, and I think the rest of it should probably fall in place fairly well for you. My third and final key to victory is something that I have kind of beat with a dead horse, but it is to protect the football. So this has been a common theme for me early on in the season, but it's an area that Green Bay has excelled in throughout this entire season, and it has tipped the scales in their 4 victories that they have had throughout the season. So you look at all 4 victories, they have won the turnover battle, they've won the turnover differential. You look at their 1 loss against the Philadelphia Eagles, they failed to get a turnover or create a turnover, and they turned over the ball 3 times, which kind of led to their demise, led to all the frustration that came with that loss. So Green Bay has a +7 turnover ratio, and that was tied for first in the entire NFL before New England took the field last night. But Detroit also has 8 takeaways of their own. 2 interceptions, 6 fumble recoveries. They have coughed the ball up 6 times themselves, so they only have a +2 turnover differential, and I expect them to turn over the ball again on Monday night, but I'm not really sure in what capacity. Hopefully it's Jair, because I love to see that guy get just jacked up and excited when he takes away the football. Especially in these divisional matchups, it will be crucial that we protect the ball as much as we aim to take it away. And last year, in Week 5 against the Detroit Lions, Green Bay was able to stop Detroit on that opening drive. It wasn't a 3-and-out situation, but we forced Detroit to punt. On that ensuing punt, the kick was, I guess the reception was muffed to an extent. It bounced off of Kevin King's leg. It allowed Detroit to take the ball. They recovered it on the 1-yard line. And very early on, Detroit got out to a lead. They took the lead. They never looked back. That was, I believe, if you want to talk about there's your dagger, there's your moment where you lost the game, that was it. I mean, it was very early on in the game. All the momentum swung to Detroit. The Packers could not find any way to get back into it. And quite frankly, Green Bay also had 2 other fumbles throughout that game. They lost a turnover battle to Detroit, 0-3. And then you throw on Mason Crosby's worst career performance, missing 4 field goals. The Packers ended up losing that game 31-21. Yes, if he had 4 field goals that he would have made, completely different story. Packers probably somehow squeak out that victory there, but they have to protect the ball. They have to find ways to, if you can't create turnovers, at least make sure that you're not giving Detroit any more opportunities or stopping your drive short. Create turnovers, protect the ball. Green Bay should come away with their 3rd divisional win of the season if they can stick to these 3 keys. And I think it's time to talk about my game prediction. Where else can we go? So Monday night will definitely be a night in Green Bay, Wisconsin, because it is a high of 48 degrees, a low of 34. I'm sure the kickoff temperature will be somewhere around that 40 degrees, so it will definitely feel like football weather in the state of Wisconsin. Detroit, like I said, Detroit will play the Packers hard and will look to prove that they're not just that other team in the division. I think for so many of us, we looked at the Bears, the Vikings, the Packers as those 3 teams. Then there was the Detroit Lions, who were more than capable enough to win a couple of games, but not who we thought would potentially be at number 1 in the division, especially if they come away with the victory. However, I do expect, spoiler alert, I expect Matt LaFleur to have this team ready. I expect them to elevate their play. I expect them to win, and I expect them to win 31-24. I do think Detroit will find some offense in the game. I think the Packers, for the most part, I think at times they could struggle to get the ball into the end zone. If Detroit truly focuses on shutting down Aaron Jones, it's going to be really interesting to see where their safety blanket is, what the next person is, who the next man up is. I'm not convinced that that's going to be Jimmy Graham. I'm not entirely sure if Allison or MVS are capable of being that number 1 wide receiver. But hey, that's why we watch the game. That's why we tune in. This is what we're going to find out, quite frankly, is what this team can do. And I see the Packers coming away with a victory. I do expect this to be a tight game. It could be a little bit ugly at times. But hey, Monday night, the lights are on. The Packers, this will be their 3rd primetime game of the year. They've gone 1-1 on these primetime games. And like I said, Green Bay should escape with a victory. They should stay ahead of the rest of that division, sitting at 5-1, and they know the importance. Like I said, they have a tendency. What we've seen is that they've stood up to the challenge against Chicago, the Vikings, and the Cowboys. They played all these teams that were, in some cases, favored over Green Bay. They stood up. They elevated their game. And I do expect the same thing to happen on this Detroit Lions game, because there's some pundits out there expecting the Lions to upset the Packers. I don't see that happening. I think they're well aware of what they need to accomplish. So thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking with me. I'm honestly exhausted. It's been I have a newborn child. But I want to get this video out there. Hopefully you guys still enjoyed it. Kickoff is 7:20 on Monday night in the lovely state of Wisconsin. That is Central Standard Time. Like I said, it should be a cold game. I will be live on Tuesday night, one way or the other, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. We will answer all of our questions or your thoughts or concerns when it comes to the matchup against the Lions. But otherwise, enjoy your weekend. Try to get outside. Try to enjoy a Sunday where you don't have to worry about watching the Packers because you know it's right around the corner on Monday Night Football, ESPN. As always, thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you on the internet.